In a shadowy English manor, a wealthy widow is poisoned with strychnine. Who among her family betrayed her? Her greedy husband? Jealous stepsons? Or a secretive ward? Hercule Poirot uncovers hidden love letters, a secret heir, and treasonous schemes. Through forged notes, a staged kidnapping, and a stormy chase, the truth erupts in a gripping library showdown. Will justice triumph, or will family ties break? Unravel the suspense in the mysterious affair at Styles.
Chapter 1. Shadows at Styles Court. The gravel crunched under the wheels of the motor car as it wound up the driveway to Styles Court, the tires kicking up a faint haze of dust that mingled with the damp scent of the Essex countryside. It was July 1917, and the war raged across the Channel. But here, in this pocket of England, the world seemed suspended in a fragile peace. Captain Arthur Hastings, invalided home from the front with a nagging leg wound, leaned against the window, his uniform still crisp despite the journey. He had accepted John Cavendish's invitation on a whim, craving the familiarity of old friendships amid the chaos of his recovery. Styles Court loomed ahead, a sprawling Tudor manor with ivy-clinging walls and mullioned windows that caught the afternoon sun like watchful eyes. John stood on the steps, his tall frame silhouetted against the stone facade, waving with forced enthusiasm. "Hastings, old chap, you look like you've seen better days. But then, haven't we all?" They clasped hands, John's grip firm, but his eyes darting, as if scanning for unseen threats. Come in. Mother's been asking about you. Says you owe her a game of bridge from that summer in '09. Hastings chuckled, though the memory felt distant, tainted by the trenches. As they entered the grand hall, polished oak panels gleamed under crystal chandeliers, but the air carried a subtle undercurrent of tension, like the hush before a storm. A maid curtsied silently, taking his hat and cane, her eyes downcast. John led him to the drawing room, where the family was assembled for tea. Emily Inglethorp, the matriarch, sat enthroned in a high-backed chair, her silver hair pinned severely, her gaze sharp as a hawk's. She was John's stepmother, having married her late father years ago, bringing wealth that had saved the estate from ruin. But whispers in society circles hinted at strings attached to that fortune. "Ah, Captain Hastings," Emily said, her voice a blend of warmth and command, extending a gloved hand. "How kind of you to grace our humble abode. The war has marked you, I see, but not broken you." "Not entirely, Mrs. Inglethorp," Hastings replied, bowing slightly. Beside her sat Alfred Inglethorp, her husband of recent vintage, a man in his 50s with a waxed mustache and an air of contrived continental flair. His eyes, dark and probing, fixed on Hastings with mild curiosity. "Alfred, dear, this is Arthur Hastings, John's comrade from school days." Alfred nodded, murmuring a polite, "enchanted." But his accent carried a faint German lilt that made Hastings' skin prickle. War nerves, perhaps. Across the room, Cynthia Murdoch lounged by the window, her auburn curls framing a face of striking beauty. She was Emily's ward, orphaned young and taken in as a gesture of charity, though some said it was to mold her into a suitable companion. "Captain," she said with a sly smile, "tell us about the front. Is it as romantic as the papers make it?" Hastings hesitated. The horrors flashing unbidden. Romantic? Hardly. More mud and madness than medals. John's brother, Lawrence Cavendish, entered then, carrying a tray of scones. Taller than John, but slighter, with a poet's dreamy eyes. He set it down with care. "Tea, everyone. Fresh from the gardens." As they settled, conversation flowed like the Darjeeling in their cups. Light at first, touching on rationing and the latest Zeppelin raids. But Hastings noticed fissures. John's occasional glare at Alfred, Cynthia's fidgeting with her necklace, and Emily's tight smile when Lawrence mentioned his aspirations to write a novel. War changes everything, Emily mused, stirring her tea. Even family ties. We've had our share of adjustments here. Alfred leaned forward. Indeed, my love, but unity prevails, no? Hastings sensed an undercurrent, but before he could probe, a knock echoed. The butler announced, "A Monsieur Hercule Poirot, madame. He claims an urgent matter." Emily's cup clattered slightly. Poirot? The Belgian refugee? Show him in. Poirot entered, a diminutive figure, with an egg-shaped head, immaculate mustache, and eyes that sparkled with intelligence. He bowed deeply. "Madame Inglethorp, pardonnez-moi for the intrusion. I am Hercule Poirot, formerly of the Belgian police, now displaced by the Boche." Emily rose, composed. "Monsieur Poirot, what brings you? We've supported your countryman's fund, but—" Poirot held up a hand. "No, madame. It is not charity I seek. I received a letter, anonymous, begging me to come. It speaks of danger lurking in this house." A hush fell. John frowned. "Danger? What rot? Who sent it?" Poirot shrugged. "That, mon ami, is the mystery. But I sense disquiet." Hastings, intrigued, introduced himself. "I've heard of you, sir. Your methods are legendary in certain circles." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Ah, Captain, flattery from a soldier. But legends are built on facts. May I join your gathering?" Emily nodded reluctantly, and Poirot took a seat, observing each face like a chess master studying the board. As tea resumed, Cynthia engaged him. "Tell us, monsieur, have you solved many crimes?" "Many, mademoiselle. But crime is not always blood. Sometimes it is the poison of the heart." Lawrence chuckled nervously. "Sounds like one of my plots. I'm penning a tale of familial intrigue." Alfred's jaw tightened. "Fiction, Lawrence. Real life is simpler." The afternoon waned, sunlight slanting through lace curtains, casting patterns like prison bars on the carpet. Hastings wandered the grounds with John, seeking fresh air. The gardens burst with lavender and hollyhocks, bees droning lazily. "Things aren't right here," John confided, lighting his cigarette. "Mother's changed since marrying Alfred. He is after her money, mark my words. Spends it on odd investments, even some German patents." Hastings raised an eyebrow. "In wartime? Risky."
"Worse, there's talk of her rewriting the will, favoring him over us boys." They paused by a fountain, water tinkling over mossy stones. A figure approached. Evie Howard, the housekeeper, a sturdy woman in her 40s with a no-nonsense bun. "Master John, dinner at 7, and mind the paths. Foxes have been digging." John nodded. "Evie, you've been here forever. Notice anything amiss?" Her eyes flicked toward the house. "Whispers, sir. Arguments behind closed doors. Mrs. Inglethorp's health. Those headaches. She takes tonics now." Back inside, as shadows lengthened, Poirot cornered Hastings in the library, shelves groaning with leather-bound tomes. "Captain, you are observant. What do you see in this family?" Hastings pondered. "Tensions, yes. Money woes, perhaps jealousy." Poirot nodded. "Précisément. But look deeper. The eyes betray, the way Alfred watches Emily like a vulture. Cynthia's smiles hide sorrow. And the brothers? Ah, sibling rivalry simmers." A bell rang for dressing.
Hastings retired to his room overlooking the stables. Unpacking, he found a note slipped under the door. "Beware the serpent in the garden." Unsigned, the script elegant but hurried. Dinner was a formal affair in the dining room, candlelight flickering on silver and crystal. Emily presided, resplendent in pearls. Conversation turned to the war effort, John's volunteer work, Lawrence's exemption due to a weak chest. Alfred boasted of his contributions, donations to relief funds. Cynthia rolled her eyes subtly. Such generosity, but what of the home front? Emily shot her a look. "Cynthia, mind your tongue." Poirot, seated beside Hastings, murmured, "Observe, mon ami. The knives are not just for the roast." Mid-meal, a storm brewed outside, thunder rumbling like distant artillery. Lightning illuminated faces in stark relief. Lawrence proposed a toast. "To family, may it endure." Glasses clinked, but Emily winced, pressing her temple. "My headache returns. Evie, fetch my tonic." Evie complied, bringing a small vial from the sideboard. Emily dosed herself, sighing. "Better. Now, Monsieur Poirot, about that letter." Poirot leaned in. "Madame, it mentioned betrayal from within. Have you enemies?" Emily laughed brittly. "In business, perhaps, but here, nonsense." Alfred changed the subject. "Tell us of Belgium, Poirot. Heroic escapes." Poirot recounted a tale of smuggling documents past German lines, his voice captivating, gestures precise. Cynthia listened rapt, but John fidgeted. After dinner, they adjourned to the conservatory, glass walls framing the stormy night. Rain lashed the panes as they played cards. Bridge, at Emily's insistence. Partnerships formed. Emily with Alfred, John with Cynthia, Lawrence with Hastings, Poirot observing. "Trump," Emily declared, slamming a card. But her triumph faded. She paled, clutching her side. "Madame," Poirot rose. "Just indigestion," she waved off. But as play continued, Hastings noticed Alfred's hand tremble when dealing. Lightning cracked, and in the flash, Hastings saw a shadow outside, a figure darting toward the woods. "Did you see that?" John peered. "Probably a poacher. Storms bring them out." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Or someone closer?" The game broke up early, Emily retiring with Evie's aid. As guests dispersed, Poirot pulled Hastings aside in the hall. "Captain, that note you found. Show me." Hastings produced it. Poirot examined. Perfumed paper. From a lady's desk, perhaps. Upstairs, Hastings' room felt chill despite the fire. He undressed, mind racing. A knock. Cynthia, in a robe, hair loose. "Captain, I couldn't sleep. That talk of danger, it's unsettling." They spoke by the hearth. "Aunt Emily's blind to Alfred. He's charming her fortune away. And Lawrence, he resents it all." Hastings nodded. "Jealousy brews trouble." She left, but not before a lingering glance that stirred old affections. Midnight struck. Hastings dozed, but a cry pierced the night. He bolted up, grabbing his robe. Down the corridor, lights flickered. John burst from his room. "Mother!" In Emily's chamber, chaos. She writhed on the bed, face contorted, froth at her lips. Alfred hovered, wringing hands. "Poison! Call a doctor!" Poirot arrived, calm amid panic. "Stand back. What did she take?" Evie sobbed. "Her tonic. I gave it myself." Lawrence fetched water. Cynthia fanned her. Hastings felt her pulse, erratic. Emily gasped. "The letter. Betrayal." Her hand clutched a crumpled paper, then went limp. Silence. Poirot checked for breath. "She lives, barely. Doctor!" As the household stirred, a motor car summoned the local physician. Poirot examined the vial. "Strychnine, I fear." "But how?" Alfred paced. "Impossible. It was sealed." John glared. "Or tampered with." The doctor arrived, administering antidotes, but Emily slipped into coma. "Touch and go," he said, leaving instructions. Dawn crept in, gray and somber. The household gathered in the morning room, coffee untouched. Poirot addressed them. "This is no accident. Someone here wished her harm." Cynthia whispered. "Who?" Poirot's gaze swept. "We shall see. But mark my words, the twisted root of this is family. Betrayal woven in blood." Hastings, exhausted, watched the sun rise over the lawns. The house held its breath, secrets lurking in every corner. Yet in this moment of crisis, a fragile unity emerged, suspicions tabled for survival's sake. The chapter of arrival closed, but the enigma had just begun its unraveling.
Chapter 2. Whispers of the Will. The first rays of dawn pierced the heavy curtains of Styles Court, casting elongated shadows across the dew-kissed lawns that stretched like a verdant carpet toward the distant woods. The estate, which had slumbered uneasily through the night, now stirred with the muffled sounds of servants preparing for a day fraught with uncertainty. Emily Inglethorp lay in her bed, her breathing shallow and labored, guarded by a nurse summoned in the small hours. The doctor had stabilized her, but the specter of strychnine hung heavy, its origin a riddle wrapped in malice. Hercule Poirot, ever the early riser, paced the flagstone terrace, his patent leather shoes clicking rhythmically against the stone. His mustache, impeccably curled, quivered as he inhaled the crisp morning air laced with the earthy aroma of freshly turned soil from the vegetable patches. Captain Hastings joined him, his leg aching from the night's exertions, a steaming cup of coffee in hand. "Poirot, you look as if you've unraveled half the puzzle already. What keeps you out here?" Poirot paused, his green eyes gleaming with that peculiar intensity. "Ah, mon ami Hastings, the night conceals, but the dawn reveals. Observe the footprints and the flower beds, fresh, deliberate. Someone ventured out after the storm, perhaps to dispose of evidence." Hastings squinted at the impressions, muddied by rain but distinct. A boot heel, perhaps size 9, leading toward the greenhouse. One of the gardeners? No. Gardeners tread lightly. This is the step of urgency, of secrecy. Poirot knelt, extracting a small twig snapped at an odd angle. "We must interrogate, but subtly. The household awakens, and alibis will solidify like cooling wax." Inside, the breakfast room hummed with subdued activity. John Cavendish sat at the head of the table, his newspaper unfolded but unread, his face etched with worry. Lawrence hovered by the sideboard, pouring tea with unsteady hands, while Cynthia, her eyes rimmed with fatigue, buttered toast absent-mindedly. Alfred Inglethorp entered last, his face a mask of concern, though his movements were too precise, too rehearsed. "Morning, all," Alfred said, his voice smooth as polished marble. "Any word on Emily?" The nurse appeared at the door. "She's resting, sir. Vital signs steady, but no visitors yet." Poirot, entering with Hastings, bowed slightly. "Bonjour. If I may, a few questions while memories are fresh." John folded his paper with a snap. "By all means, we want this cleared up." Poirot began with Alfred.
Monsieur Inglethorp, where were you between 10 and midnight? Alfred sipped his coffee. In the study, reviewing accounts. Alone, I'm afraid. No witnesses? Poirot pressed. None needed for paperwork, Alfred replied, a hint of defensiveness creeping in. Shifting to Cynthia, Poirot's tone softened. Mademoiselle, you assisted with the tonic. Did you notice anything unusual? Cynthia shook her head. It was the usual vial from the dispensary, sealed as always. Lawrence interjected. The dispensary key, it's kept in the hall drawer. Anyone could access it. Poirot nodded. Precisely. And you, Monsieur Lawrence? Your whereabouts? Reading in my room. Poetry, actually. Yeats. Calms the nerves. As breakfast concluded, Hastings slipped away to the library, drawn by a hunch. Amid the towering shelves, he rifled through Emily's desk drawers, finding a leather-bound portfolio marked Legal Documents. Inside, her will, dated 6 months prior. Scanning the clauses, his breath caught. A codicil added recently, bequeathing the bulk of the estate to Alfred upon her death with only modest annuities for John and Lawrence. A footnote mentioned, in recognition of unwavering support. Clutching the document, Hastings hurried back to Poirot, who was inspecting the dispensary, a small room off the kitchen, stocked with bottles and powders. "Look at this, Hastings," whispered, unfolding the will. Poirot's eyes widened fractionally. Ah, the motive emerges. Money, the oldest poison. They were interrupted by John, who burst in, face flushed. "Lawrence wants a word, privately, in the billiard room." Hastings and Poirot exchanged glances, but respected the request. In the billiard room, with its green baize table and cue racks, John confronted his brother. "That codicil! I've heard rumors. Mother's cutting us out for that charlatan Alfred." Lawrence leaned on a cue, his expression pained. "It's not rumors. I overheard her solicitor last month. But what can we do? Challenge her now with her ill?" John paced, chalking a cue absent-mindedly. "We fight it, united. Remember father's wishes, the estate for us, not some outsider." Their voices rose, echoing off the paneled walls, until Lawrence sighed, "Fine, but discreetly. No scenes."
Unbeknownst to them, Cynthia lingered outside, ear to the door. Her face paled. She slipped away, heading to the stables where a horse-drawn cart waited. A man in a tweed cap dismounted, a stranger with a rugged jaw and piercing blue eyes. "Miss Murdoch," he greeted, tipping his hat. "You summoned me?" Cynthia glanced around. "Quietly, Mr. Reeves. It's about Aunt Emily's investments. Those shares Alfred pushed. Suspect, aren't they?" Reeves, a private inquiry agent, nodded. "Dodgy. Tied to wartime speculators. But why flirt with danger? You could expose him." She smiled coyly, touching his arm. "Information first. Then, perhaps more." Their conversation turned lighter, laced with innuendo, as she batted lashes and he leaned closer, the stable's hay scent mingling with his cologne. Meanwhile, Poirot reconstructed the timeline in the drawing room, sketching on a notepad. The storm at 9, lightning at 10, Emily's cry at midnight, but the tonic was given at 11. Hastings added, "And that fire in her grate." Smoke lingered, singeing the velvet curtain. Odd for July. Poirot sniffed the air near her nightstand. Bergamot, faint but distinct. From tea or perfume. Evie entered, carrying linens. "Sir, the inquest's set for tomorrow. Coroner's coming." Poirot turned. "Mademoiselle Howard, you prepared the cocoa last night?" Evie nodded. "Yes, with milk from the dairy. Warmed it myself." As she left, a note fluttered from her apron pocket, a scrap of paper with scrawled words, "End this farce or I'll tell all." Signed, E. Poirot snatched it. Forged, or genuine? Hastings examined. Ink fresh, implicates her in some quarrel. The household gathered for luncheon in the sunroom, glass walls admitting watery light through lingering clouds. Tension simmered as cold meats and salads were served. Alfred dominated, praising Emily's resilience. "She'll pull through, strong as oak." John muttered to Lawrence, "Oak he wants to fell for profit." Cynthia, returning flushed from the stables, avoided eyes. Poirot, ever observant, noted her disheveled hair. "Mademoiselle? A pleasant ride?" She startled. "Just fresh air." Post-meal, Poirot summoned Evie to the conservatory, amid exotic ferns and blooming orchids. "This note, yours?" Evie's face crumpled. "No, I've served faithfully, but Emily and I argued weeks ago. Over wages. Nothing more." Poirot probed gently. "And Alfred? Any dealings?" She hesitated. "He borrows from the household funds, small sums." A breakthrough. Poirot dismissed her, turning to Hastings. "Layers peel away. Now the cocoa, not the tonic, was the vector. Residue in the cup confirms it." Hastings gasped. "So the vial was a decoy?" "Oui, misdirection." Afternoon brought the coroner, a portly man named Dr. Wilkins, who inspected the scene. Strychnine, clear as day. Accidental? Doubtful. As he departed, a telegram arrived for Cynthia, from Reeves. Evidence mounting. Meet tonight. She pocketed it swiftly, but Lawrence glimpsed it, his suspicion ignited. In the orchard, apple trees heavy with fruit, John and Lawrence reconvened. "That will, we can test it," John urged. Lawrence nodded. "But if she dies, too late." Their plot thickened, whispers of legal maneuvers and hidden assets. Poirot, meanwhile, examined the singed curtain in Emily's room. Fire set deliberately, to destroy something. Hastings found ash remnants, a burned envelope, fragments reading, "Divorce proceedings." Mon Dieu, Emily planned to leave Alfred. The revelation electrified. As evening approached, the family dined sparsely, storm clouds gathering anew. Conversations skirted the crisis, focusing on trivialities, garden shows, war bonds. But Poirot dropped his bomb. The poison, in the cocoa, not medicine. Who handled the cup? Fingers pointed. Evie prepared. Alfred carried it up. Alfred blanched. "Absurd. I love her." Cynthia defended. "It could be anyone." In the chaos, Poirot spotted a handkerchief on the floor, monogrammed AI, stained with blue ink. Pocketing it, he murmured to Hastings, "The betrayer pens their doom in invisible script. Heat reveals all." The group dispersed, secrets festering like untreated wounds. John retired brooding, Lawrence to his verses, Cynthia to clandestine plans, Alfred to feigned grief, Evie to duties shadowed by doubt. The web constricted, one strand tighter, as whispers of the will echoed through the halls, promising more revelations in the morrow's light. Yet, for now, a tenuous calm settled, the chapter's enigmas teased but not fully bared, leaving hearts pounding in anticipation.
Chapter 3. Echoes in the Attic. The midday sun filtered through the leaded windows of Styles Court, painting the polished floors in patchwork gold. But the warmth did little to dispel the chill of suspicion that had seeped into every crevice. Emily Inglethorp lingered in a fragile limbo, her condition unchanged, watched over by the vigilant nurse whose footsteps echoed like a metronome in the hushed corridors. Hercule Poirot, undeterred by the impasse, had turned his attention to the estate's hidden recesses, convinced that the past held keys to the present malice. Captain Arthur Hastings found Poirot in the upper hallway, peering at a narrow door concealed behind a tapestry of hunting scenes. "What's this?" Hastings asked, his curiosity piqued by the detective's focused demeanor. Poirot tapped the wood gently. "The attic, mon ami, where forgotten things whispered truths. Families like the Cavendishes bury more than dust up there, secrets, relics of old passions." With a creak, the door yielded to Poirot's gentle push, revealing a steep staircase shrouded in cobwebs.
They ascended, the air growing musty, thick with the scent of aged paper and mothballs. Beams of light pierced through a small dormer window, illuminating trunks and crates stacked like ancient sentinels. Hastings sneezed, disturbing a layer of fine grit. "Careful," Poirot cautioned, his voice a murmur. "We seek not just objects, but echoes." They began their search methodically. Hastings pried open a steamer trunk labeled E.C., Emily Cavendish, her maiden name. Inside, amid yellowed gowns and faded photographs, lay a bundle of letters bound with a silk ribbon, the edges frayed from repeated handling. The topmost envelope bore a postmark from 1895, addressed in a bold, masculine script. Poirot's eyes lit. "Amour caché, hidden love." Read Hastings, but softly. Hastings unfolded the first. "My dearest Emily, the days without you are eternal torment. Your father's disapproval cannot extinguish this fire. Meet me at the old oak. Yours eternally, R." The signature, Reginald Fitzroy. "A suitor," Hastings breezed, "before she married old Cavendish." Poirot nodded, scanning more. "Passionate, yes, but look, the last one, dated just before her wedding. Betrayed, you've chosen wealth over heart, may regret haunt you. A curse, perhaps fueling lifelong grudges." As they delved deeper, a noise from below, footsteps on the stairs. Cynthia appeared, her face flushed, carrying a lantern. "I saw the door ajar. What are you doing up here?" Poirot smiled disarmingly. "Exploring history, mademoiselle. These letters, do you know of Reginald?" Her hand flew to her mouth. "Aunt Emily mentioned him once, in anger. Said he vanished after her marriage, but rumors he fathered a child out of wedlock. Could it tie to this?" Intrigued, Poirot pocketed a letter. "Perhaps. Your own past, orphaned young, taken in, any resentments?" She hesitated, eyes darting. "She was kind, but controlling, dictated my suitors, my future, like a puppet master." Downstairs, the inquest had convened in the drawing room, the coroner, Dr. Wilkins, presiding with a jury of locals. Alfred sat rigidly, his testimony first. "I was in London that afternoon, returning by train. Ticket stub proves it." But Poirot, observing from the back, whispered to Hastings, "Check the timetable. Trains run hourly. Plenty of time to slip back." John followed, his voice steady. "Mother and I walked the grounds earlier. No quarrels." Lawrence fidgeted during his turn. "I was sketching in the folly, alone." Cynthia's account wavered. "Helping in the kitchen, then reading." Evie last confirmed the cocoa preparation. "Unadulterated, sir." The jury retired, returning with "poisoning by person unknown," leaving the air thicker with doubt. Post-inquest, Alfred cornered Poirot in the hall. "This alibi nonsense? Prove me wrong if you can." Poirot's gaze was steel. "Monsieur, the clock ticks. Your London trip. Witnesses?" "A tailor, a fitting for a suit." But Hastings, sent to verify via telegram, returned with news the tailor recalled no such appointment. "Alibi crumbles," he reported.
Poirot confronted Alfred in the study, amid leather chairs and cigar smoke. "You lied. Why?" Alfred sweated. "Business meeting, confidential, not relevant." "Everything is relevant in murder," Poirot retorted. Meanwhile, Cynthia met Reeves in the boathouse by the pond, reeds whispering in the breeze. "Those shares, fraudulent?" she asked. Reeves nodded, producing documents. "Alfred's funneling funds to shell companies. But you, why risk exposure?" Her eyes flashed. "Freedom! Emily's grip loosens if he's disgraced." Their lips met briefly, a spark of forbidden alliance. In the attic again, Poirot uncovered a diary. Emily's, entries cryptic. R returns in dreams. Guilt over the child. Must atone. Hastings gasped. A secret heir? Poirot pondered. Possible. Explains the will's shift. Penance? Lawrence intruded then, ladder creaking. What have you found? Shown the diary, he paled. Mother never spoke of it, but I recall a locked box in her safe. They descended to Emily's room, the nurse stepping aside. Poirot picked the safe, a jewelry case, but inside, adoption papers for a boy dated 1896, placed with a distant family. Mon Dieu! Poirot exclaimed. The motive multiplies. Inheritance threatened by a lost son. John, overhearing, stormed in. Impossible! We're her only heirs. Argument ensued, voices rising, Lawrence defending the find, John denying, Cynthia entering to mediate. If true, it changes everything. Poirot calmed them. Truth emerges piecemeal. Afternoon tea in the garden, under a striped awning, brought uneasy truce. Scones and clotted cream passed, but talk turned to the broken coffee cup from the night, shards analyzed by Poirot. Residue, veronal, he revealed, sleeping draught, mixed to mask the strychnine. Evie dropped a plate. I use veronal for my insomnia, but I didn't. Suspicion shifted. Poirot questioned her privately in the pantry, shelves lined with jars. Your quarrel with Emily? Over what? Evie confessed. She accused me of theft, a missing brooch. But it was Alfred, pawning for debts. Proof? A receipt in her pocket. The plot thickened. Hastings trailed Alfred to the village, watching him post a letter at the inn, intercepting the postmaster later, addressed to a London banker, urgent withdrawal. Back at Styles, a witness emerged, a gardener's boy, claiming he saw a shadow in the moonlit garden, tossing something into the pond. Poirot organized a search, family wading in shallows. Lawrence retrieved a vial, empty, labeled strychnine. Fingerprints? Hastings asked. Poirot smiled. We check. In the laboratory makeshift in the garage, using powder, prints matched Cynthia's. Confrontation in the drawing room. Cynthia wept. I handled it for Emily's rats in the barn, not poison. Reeves arrived unannounced, documents in hand. Alfred's fraud exposed. Chaos. Alfred lunged, but John restrained him. Poirot intervened, not the killer, yet. Twist. The vial was decoy, real poison from a hidden source. Evening fell, lanterns lit in the attic for further search. Poirot found a locket, inside Reginald's auto, inscribed Forgive. Emily steered downstairs, murmuring, Reginald, sorry. Poirot rushed, holding her hand. Madame, the child. Her eyes opened weakly. Adopted, safe, don't tell. But Alfred overheard, face twisting. You hidden heir! My fortune! Outburst revealed his greed. Poirot pieced. Alfred discovered the secret, poisoned to claim all before revelation, yet evidence lacking. A standoff by the fireplace, flames crackling. Confess, Poirot urged. He sneered. Prove it. Clue, misplaced vial of veronal in his pocket. You dosed her, Poirot accused. Denial, but Lawrence found a matching prescription. Partial truth. Alfred tampered, but motive deeper. Reginald's return, blackmailing Emily. The family gasped. Poirot declared, darkness lifts on loyalty's facade. Relief partial, mystery core intact, as thunder rumbled anew, sealing the chapter's revelations in shadowed satisfaction.
Chapter 4. Fractured Alliances. Twilight draped Styles Court in a shroud of indigo, the estate's chimneys silhouette against a sky streaked with fading crimson. The wind whispered through the ancient elms, carrying the faint tang of impending rain, as if nature itself conspired to heighten the drama unfolding within. Emily Inglethorp had awakened briefly that afternoon, her voice a frail thread, murmuring incoherently about lost opportunities and shadowed pacts, before slipping back into restless slumber. The revelation of her secret child had cracked the family's veneer, exposing raw nerves and simmering animosities that now threatened to erupt. Hercule Poirot stood in the vestibule, his compact frame immaculate in a tailored suit, polishing his pince-nez with a silk handkerchief. Captain Hastings approached, his stride purposeful despite the limp. "Poirot, the household's on edge. Alfred's been holed up in the study all day, and the brothers are at each other's throats." Poirot replaced his glasses, his eyes sharp as obsidian. "Ah, Hastings, alliances fracture when truths surface like buried bones. We must probe the fissures, gently, lest they widen into chasms." Their first destination was the morning room, where Cynthia sat by the bay window, stitching a sampler with mechanical precision. Her needle flashed in the lamplight, but her gaze was distant, fixed on the gathering dusk. "Mademoiselle," Poirot began softly, "your thoughts wander far. The adoption papers, they stir memories?" Cynthia set down her work, her fingers trembling slightly. "It's like a veil lifted. Aunt Emily always treated me as her own, but now, was I a replacement for that lost boy? And Alfred, he's furious, pacing like a caged beast." Hastings leaned against the mantel. "You've been seen with that investigator, Reeves. Is he digging into more than finances?" Her cheeks flushed. "He's helping uncover Alfred's schemes. False identities, embezzled funds routed through Swiss accounts. But it's risky. If Alfred finds out—" Poirot nodded sagely. "Risk breeds revelation. Tell us of Emily's recent visitors. Any strangers?" Cynthia pondered. "A week ago, a solicitor from London. Grim fellow. Discussed amendments. And a telegram from someone named Fitzroy. She burned it immediately." The name resonated. Reginald Fitzroy, the long-lost lover. Poirot's mustache twitched. Intriguing. Perhaps the past knocks. Leaving her, they ventured to the billiard room, where John and Lawrence huddled over a map spread on the felt table, their voices low and urgent. John traced a line with his finger. "If we sell the outlying farms, we secure capital, independent of her will." Lawrence shook his head. "Too hasty. Wait for her recovery. Challenge the codicil legally." Poirot cleared his throat. "Messieurs, plotting the estate's future. Bold, with Emily still breathing." John straightened, defiant. "It's survival. Alfred's draining the coffers. We've proof from bank statements." Hastings examined the map. "These lands, family holdings for generations. Selling betrays heritage." Lawrence sighed. "Heritage poisoned by secrets. That child, if he claims a share." Poirot interjected. "The boy, adopted anonymously. But suppose he knows his origins. Blackmail?" The brothers exchanged uneasy glances. John admitted, "We've received anonymous notes, demands for silence or exposure." A knock interrupted. Evie, bearing a tray of sherry. "Gentlemen, fortification against the chill." As she poured, Poirot noticed a bruise on her wrist. "Mademoiselle Howard, an injury." She pulled her sleeve down. "Clumsy fall, nothing." But her eyes darted to Alfred's distant study door.
Dusk deepened into night, the house alive with creaks and sighs. Poirot and Hastings dined alone in the small parlor, a modest spread of cold pheasant and chutney. "The alliances shift," Poirot mused, slicing precisely. "John and Lawrence unite against Alfred. Cynthia allies with Reeves. Evie hides pains." Hastings nodded. "And the telegram, Fitzroy's return?"
Poirot set down his knife. "We investigate. Tomorrow, London." But fate intervened sooner. A crash echoed from upstairs, glass shattering. They rushed to Emily's room, finding her bed empty, the window ajar. The nurse lay slumped, a cloth over her face, chloroform scent lingering. "Mon ami!" Poirot exclaimed. "Abduction?" Hastings checked the nurse, unconscious but alive. Below, shouts, John and Alfred grappling in the hall, fists flying. "You thief!" John bellowed, landing a punch. Alfred reeled. "Lies. I protect what's mine." Lawrence pulled them apart, Cynthia arriving breathless. Aunt Emily, gone. Chaos reigned. Poirot took command. "Search the grounds. Hastings, the stables." Hastings dashed out, lantern in hand, the night air crisp and star-studded. Hoofprints led to the lane, fresh, chaotic. A glint caught his eye. A brooch, Emily's favorite sapphire. Returning, he found Poirot examining the room. Chloroform from the medical kit, missing vial. Evie appeared, wringing hands. "I locked it. Someone picked it." Suspicion fell on Alfred. "You were nearest," John accused. Alfred protested. "Insane. I love her." Poirot's gaze pierced. Love or legacy? Midnight brought a telegram from Reeves. "Fitzroy sighted in village. Demands meeting." Cynthia confessed. "I contacted him. Thought he could expose Alfred." The group convened in the library, fire roaring against the chill. Poirot paced. "Fitzroy, the spurned lover, father of the child. He seeks vengeance?" Lawrence revealed a letter from his pocket. "This came yesterday. Return what's mine or suffer." Signed, R.F. John gasped. He took her. Hastings suggested, "Ransom?" Poirot shook his head. "Deeper. Alliances fracture. Perhaps a pact between Fitzroy and an insider." Evie broke down. "I forced me. Spy on Emily. The bruise, his grip." Alfred lunged, but Hastings restrained him. "Confess." "I suspected her affair lingering, but abduction, no." A motor car roared outside. Reeves, disheveled. "Fitzroy's at the old mill. Emily's there. Bound." They piled into cars, racing through moonlit lanes, wind-whipping branches like accusing fingers. The mill loomed, decrepit and groaning, river rushing nearby. Inside, lanterns revealed Emily tied to a chair, Fitzroy, gray-haired, wild-eyed, pacing. "She owes me. Years stolen." Poirot stepped forward. "Monsieur Fitzroy, release her. Vengeance poisons the soul." Fitzroy snarled. "She abandoned our son for wealth." Emily, gagged, shook her head vehemently. Cynthia untied her. "It's not true. The child was adopted safely." Fitzroy faltered. "But the letters. She wrote of regret." Poirot clarified. "Forged? By whom?" Alfred, shoved forward by John. "You planned this. Frame me." Denials flew, but Reeves produced evidence. Fitzroy's bank records, payments from Alfred. Blackmail reversed, Poirot deduced. Alfred hired Fitzroy to scare Emily, alter the will further. But twist, Lawrence's handwriting on the forged letters. "You," John turned, "betrayal raw." Lawrence confessed. "To unite us against Alfred, force her to revise." Alliances shattered in revelations. Poirot mediated. Greed binds, then breaks. Emily freed, whispered, "Enough, home." Back at Styles, dawn breaking, the family sat shock-shelled in the conservatory. Exotic plants an ironic backdrop to domestic turmoil. Poirot summarized. Fitzroy manipulated, Alfred scheming, Lawrence deceiving, but the poisoner remains. A partial mending,
Brothers clasped hands. Cynthia comforted Emily. Evie vowed loyalty anew. Yet Alfred's glare promised more strife. Poirot, by the window, watched the sun rise. The maze of motives twists, but we near the center. Relief tempered by lingering shadows, the chapter sealed with fragile bonds reforged, anticipation humming for the final unraveling.
Chapter 5. The Unveiling of Venom. The grand library of Styles Court, bathed in the amber glow of a crackling fire, its towering shelves laden with volumes that whispered of forgotten eras, served as the stage for the final act. Rain pattered against the leaded panes like impatient fingers, mirroring the restless hearts of those assembled. Emily Inglethorp, frail but resolute, sat propped in a wing-back chair, her once commanding presence diminished yet unbroken by the ordeal. Around her clustered the family, John with his jaw set in grim determination, Lawrence nursing a tumbler of brandy, Cynthia twisting a handkerchief in her lap, Alfred standing aloof by the mantel, and Evie hovering at the edges like a vigilant shadow. Captain Hastings occupied a corner settee, his notebook at the ready, while Hercule Poirot commanded the center, his diminutive stature belying the authority that silenced the room. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice a velvet blade, "we gather not for recriminations, but for truth. The venom that struck Madame Inglethorp was no serpent's fang, but a calculated strike from within this very circle. Tonight, the mask falls." Emily's eyes, sharp despite her pallor, fixed on him. "Proceed, monsieur. I've endured shadows long enough." Poirot paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. "Let us reconstruct, piece by meticulous piece. The strychnine, procured not from the dispensary as first assumed, but from a veterinary supplier in the village, under a false name. Receipts, hidden in the stable loft, bear the imprint of a signet ring." He paused, producing a wax-sealed envelope from his pocket. "This ring, Monsieur Alfred." Alfred's face remained impassive. "Many own such rings. Coincidence?" "No," Poirot countered. "The jeweler in London confirms, engraved with your initials. Commissioned last year." Murmurs rippled. John leaned forward. "You always fancied yourself clever with disguises." Poirot continued undeterred. "The administration, cleverly timed, not in the tonic nor the cocoa alone, but laced into the sugar bowl during afternoon tea, dissolving slowly. Madame's habit of multiple lumps ensured the dose accumulated." Cynthia gasped. "But we all took sugar." "Precisement," Poirot said, his eyes twinkling. "Yet only Madame suffered. Why? The poison adhered to specific cubes, those with a faint notch, selected by the culprit who served her personally." Lawrence set down his glass with a clink. "Alfred poured for her that day." Alfred's composure cracked slightly. "Servants handle such trifles." Evie interjected softly. "No, sir. You insisted, said it was a husband's duty." Poirot nodded approvingly. "Now, motive. Not mere greed, though the will favored you. Deeper, fear of exposure. Madame planned divorce, discovering your embezzlement, not just household funds, but siphoning from her wartime charities. Ledgers in your valise, coded but deciphered by my little gray cells, show transfers to a Berlin account." The room tensed. Emily's voice trembled. "Berlin? In wartime?" "Oui, madame. Treasonous dealings, supplying neutral parties with British patents, profiting from the conflict that ravages Europe." Alfred laughed bitterly. "Fantasy. Prove it." Poirot produced a sheaf of telegrams. "Intercepted by a contact in the post office. One reads, 'Shipment secure, payment imminent,' signed with your cipher." Hastings, unable to contain himself, added, "And the bergamot scent on the nightstand,
Your cologne, traced to a Parisian blend you alone import. The fire popped, sending sparks dancing. Cynthia rose, her voice steady. But the abduction, Fitzroy's involvement. A diversion, Poirot explained. Alfred orchestrated it through intermediaries, paying Fitzroy to stage the kidnapping, sowing chaos to mask his final attempt. The chloroform vial bore your fingerprint, lifted from a glass. John pounded the armrest. You endangered mother for cover? Alfred's eyes darted, seeking escape. Lies, all circumstantial. Poirot smiled faintly. Then consider the crumpled paper in Madame's hand during her seizure. Not a letter, but a pharmacy label, torn from the strychnine bottle. Fibers match your cufflink's thread, snagged in haste. Lawrence whispered. The timeline. You slipped back from London early via the back roads. Exactement. A witness, the milkman, saw your motor car at dusk, headlights dimmed. Emily fixed Alfred with a gaze of steel. Why, Alfred? I gave you everything. He slumped, the fight ebbing. Everything? You dangled wealth like a carrot, then threatened to snatch it. The divorce, ruin. I needed control. Confession tumbled forth. The poisoned sugar, the staged alibis, the desperate abduction to feign an external threat. It was to be quick, merciful. But she fought, clung to life. The room fell silent, save the rain's crescendo. Poirot signaled Hastings, who summoned the waiting constables from the hall. Justice awaits, monsieur. As Alfred was led away, handcuffs clicking, he cast a final venomous glance. You'll regret this, all of you. Emily sighed deeply. No, Alfred, regret is yours alone. With the culprit removed, a weight lifted. John embraced his mother. It's over. Lawrence poured fresh brandy. To new beginnings. Cynthia smiled through tears. And truth's light. Evie busied herself with tea, her loyalty reaffirmed. Poirot bowed. Madame, your strength inspires. Captain Hastings and I depart at dawn. Captain Hastings shook hands warmly. A masterful resolution, Poirot. Outside, the storm abated, stars peeking through rents in the clouds. Styles Court, purged of its poison, breathed freely, the family mending in the glow of hard-won peace. The tale closed, echoes fading into serenity.